You walk into a room with a clear purpose, and the second you cross that doorway, it's gone. Completely gone. You're just standing there, confused, in a room you don't even remember why you entered. This happens to almost every single person on Earth, not occasionally, regularly. And scientists have a specific explanation for exactly why it happens, and it has almost nothing to do with your memory being bad. It's called the doorway effect. And once you understand it, you'll never look at doorways the same way again. And here's the part that should genuinely surprise you. This isn't random. It's not you being careless. It's not early memory loss. It's a specific, predictable, scientifically documented phenomenon that happens to nearly everyone, triggered by one single simple action, walking through a doorway. Here's what's actually happening inside your brain. Your mind organizes memories and intentions into something researchers call event models. Think of an event model as a mental folder your brain creates for whatever situation you're currently in. Sitting on the couch scrolling your phone is one event model. Standing in the kitchen deciding what to cook is another. The doorway itself acts as a physical boundary between these mental folders. The moment you physically pass through it, your brain treats this as a signal that one event has ended and a new one is beginning. And to prepare for this new environment, your brain does something surprising. It starts clearing out information tied to the previous event, including whatever plan you just had in your head seconds earlier. This process happens almost instantly and completely outside your conscious control. You don't choose to forget. This isn't a flaw, it's actually a feature. Your brain is constantly trying to save mental energy, and holding on to every single detail from every room you've ever walked through would be exhausting and unnecessary. So instead, it prioritizes the environment currently in front of you, sometimes at the cost of whatever you were just planning to do. Researchers have actually tested this in controlled experiments. Participants were asked to carry an item across a room and either place it on a table in the same room or walk through a doorway into a different room to place it down. The people who walked through a doorway made significantly more memory errors than those who stayed in the same space, even though the physical distance traveled was often identical. This proved something important. It wasn't the walking or the distance that caused the forgetting. It was specifically the act of crossing a boundary between two different spaces. What's even stranger is that researchers found this effect happens even in virtual reality. Test subjects wearing VR headsets, walking through completely digital doorways, still experienced the same memory lapse. Even though there was no real physical door, no real threshold, nothing tangible separating one digital room from another. This suggests the effect isn't really about the door itself. It's about the mental boundary your brain creates the moment it perceives a transition from one space to another. This detail matters a lot because it rules out simpler explanations, like distraction from the physical act of opening a door or the sound of a door closing behind you. Even in a completely virtual environment with no physical door at all, simply crossing a perceived threshold was enough to trigger the same forgetting. This also explains why simply turning around and walking back into the original room often brings the forgotten thought rushing back almost instantly. By physically returning to the same environment, you're essentially reopening the exact mental folder your brain had just closed, and with it, the intention you'd stored inside. There's also a fascinating connection here to how our ancestors' brains likely evolved. For most of human history, changing physical locations often meant changing potential dangers, different terrain, different visibility, different predator risks. A brain that quickly refreshed its focus based on new surroundings rather than clinging to outdated information from a previous space would have had a genuine survival advantage. In other words, this seemingly annoying mental glitch might actually be a leftover survival mechanism, one that helped ancient humans stay alert and adaptable to new physical environments. Even if today, it just means forgetting why you walked into the kitchen. It's a strange thought that a mental habit shaped by the genuine dangers of prehistoric life is still quietly running in the background of your brain today, thousands of years later, even though the most dangerous thing waiting for you in the next room is probably just an empty fridge. This effect tends to get noticeably worse under certain conditions. Stress, multitasking, and mental fatigue all seem to amplify how easily your brain lets go of short-term intentions during a location change. This is part of why forgetting your purpose in a room happens far more often during busy, overwhelming overwhelming days than during calm, focused ones. Think about the last time this happened to you. Chances are you were already juggling multiple thoughts at once, maybe thinking about a message you needed to send, a task waiting at work, or something stressful on your mind, all competing for limited mental space right as you crossed that doorway. Under those conditions, your brain has even less capacity to protect a fragile, newly formed intention from being wiped during the transition. Age also appears to play a role, though perhaps not in the way most people assume. While memory naturally becomes less efficient over time for many people, the doorway effect itself has been observed across all age groups, including young, healthy adults with otherwise excellent memory. This suggests it isn't primarily a sign of memory decline at all, but rather a normal, universal quirk of how human attention and memory systems are fundamentally structured. This is actually somewhat reassuring. Many people quietly worry the first time this happens to them, wondering if it's an early sign of something concerning. But the research is fairly clear. This specific pattern of forgetting is tied to the boundary crossing itself, not to any decline in overall cognitive health. There are a few simple strategies that seem to help reduce how often this happens. Saying your intention out loud right before entering a new room, for example, appears to help reinforce it in a way that's slightly more resistant to the mental reset triggered by crossing a boundary. Visualizing the specific object you're going to retrieve, rather than just the general task, also seems to anchor the intention a bit more firmly in memory. Ultimately, though, this is simply part of being human. Your brain isn't broken when this happens. It's actually running an ancient, efficient system that's been quietly working in the background of every human mind for as long as we've been walking between different spaces. Think about how many millions of times a single person crosses a doorway across an entire lifetime, and how this exact small glitch has likely been happening to every single one of your ancestors too, all the way back through human history, completely unnoticed until modern science finally decided to study it closely. So the next time you find yourself standing in a room, blinking, wondering why you're even there, know that you're not alone, and you're definitely not losing your mind. You're just experiencing one of the most universally shared, quietly fascinating quirks of the human brain. If this has happened to you today, let us know in the comments exactly which room caught you off guard. And if you want more surprising truths about how your brain actually works, hit subscribe for more, because the human mind is full of quietly fascinating quirks just like this one, hiding in the most ordinary moments of everyday life.